Okay, Professor, this question comes to us from Dr. Thomas Seiler, and his question is, in recent years, climate science has received an unusual amount of public attention for such a young discipline. It has also generated widespread controversy. Could you share some of your personal views on climate science and on climate policy?
Well, I am certainly no expert on either of these matters. It seems to me that the big trade-off that we face is, first of all, is this really something, a real phenomenon that we're going to be experiencing global warming if things continue as they have been? And if so, how much? And if that is going to happen, what could we do to mitigate its effects or to reverse them? And everything that I've seen proposed is a very expensive course of action in the face of this uncertainty. One proposal that I saw a while back, which was a kind of interesting one, was that since people believe that, some people believe it's very likely to be harmed, and other one that it's not very likely to be harmed, we might be able to set up some kind of deal, and I know, Thomas, you're aware of this, like the rain bet deal that we do in class, where people with vastly different probabilities of something can arrange a situation where they will, if their view prevails, they will get paid off, and so they both feel very good about entering into this arrangement. And that might be interesting. In other words, if you had to actually bet your own resources on whether something that you don't want to happen is going to happen or not, and you have these two different points of view, you might be able to construct situations where it would be very beneficial to enter into such arrangements so that both people would feel that they're getting the better end of the deal, although the actual events in nature will determine whether how the payoffs will work out. Yeah, and I saw some other ideas along this same line, having to do with making, let's say, a more dynamic policy. You do something, and then if the results are worse than you thought they were, then you increase the amount of resources you're devoting to this. But if they turn out to be not so bad, then you decrease them. In other words, a more adaptive control than a bang bang. We say, this is definitely a disaster and we have to spend all kinds of money to reverse it now. I think that would be a better way to go. Of course, another interesting issue is people have different views about whether climate change is a good idea. And in Canada, they're growing wines that they were never able to grow before. Some places will be disadvantaged by it, and others perhaps advantaged by it. And we know that even a country as small as the Netherlands was able to deal with increasing dangers from the sea and reclaim land from the sea, and it's quite a prosperous country. So these stories about how badly things would be if the sea levels rose, well, maybe there'll be adjustments, but maybe they won't be as serious or as expensive or as great as we think they'll be today. So I guess I'm reluctant to spend a lot of money that could be used to alleviate current human problems of all kinds in anticipation of one that is not yet agreed to be as big as some people think it is.
Do you have any comments on the science behind climate change?
Well, I know there's controversy. I've heard, of course, both sides of it. I think it's much more complex than any simple explanation can deal with. For example, as I understand it, some of the relationships in the environment that have been used to, and I could have prepared for this better, I don't know if I had more time, some of the relations that we've used that we thought were true scientifically are turning out to be not quite as simple as they were thought to be. And there was one, I wish I had the reference here, but there are chemical things that can happen that would increase the cloud layer and but have differential effects on the kinds of sunlight that are being reflected. This whole area of geoengineering, which sounds like science fiction, might also be used here. As a matter of fact, here's what I'm remembering, that the sulfur emissions which go with diesel fuel and other things, may actually have a mitigating effect on climate change that I'd never heard about before. So before I make any official, I haven't formed a total opinion on this, but there's a lot of information I think would be useful to gather to see, can we explain what's going on now? What is the best explanation of it? And given that there will be considerable uncertainty, what do we do in advance of that, given that information, that will be as prudent a policy as possible?
Yes.
One other thing they mentioned was that volcanoes, which produce a lot of sulfur, have a multi-year effect compared to some of these things that we think will have very short-run effects if we do them. So that's just another evidence that we'd better learn a lot more about how nature is handling this problem itself before we make a big investment in trying to control it.